All right, everyone settle down. Today we're talking about the first aircraft carrier that was created by the U.S. Navy over 100 years ago, the USS Langley. And tonight, to help us tell that story, is we've got an author that's going to be joining us, David Winkler, who wrote a book about the Langley. We'll get to that in a little bit. But joining us this evening, as always, we've got Shane Stevenson from the Buffalo Naval Park.
Sure.
John Epp from the USS Slater. His camera's not working, or he doesn't have a camera tonight, so you're not going to see him. And then, of course, Connor from the Facebook group Museum Ships.
And the website, museumships.us.
Right. All right. So, like I said, let's see. Yeah, so like I said, tonight we're going to be talking about the USS Langley. Love talking about aircraft carriers, this one specifically. And, of course, another live broadcast. We just introduced Shane, John Epp, and Connor. Joining us tonight is going to be an author by the name of David Winkler. This is part of it's another episode of our author series in collaboration with the U.S. Naval Institute Press. Always check out their website, www.usni.org. Now, this guy, I mean, we've had some impressive people on, here on the video podcast with Museum Ship Mafia. David Winkler, he's got pretty impressive resume, pretty impressive pedigree. He's out of Northern Virginia, PhD from American University, adjunct professor with the U.S. Naval War College, and staff historian with the Naval Historical Foundation. So he's written a lot of books, and they're pretty heavy duty. Cold War at Sea, High Seas Confrontation between the U.S. and Soviet Union, Incidents at Sea, Cooperation with Russia and China, Emirs, Admirals, and Desert Sailors, U.S. Navy, Bahrain, and the Gulf. I mean, the list goes on. So tonight, we're going to be talking about America's first aircraft carrier, USS Langley, and the dawn of U.S. naval aviation, which, correct me if I'm wrong, David, that one was published about a year ago, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Now, I've always had a fascination with the Langley, not only with the fact that it was America's first carrier, but also the fact that they literally just took a cargo ship and bolted a flat top on it. What made you fascinated with the Langley?
Well, I have to credit Norman Polmar, who approached me. This is now, about 10, 15 years ago, and said, Dave, nobody has ever written a book about the Langley. And it's just, I looked at the library catalogs, and, considering how important aircraft carriers have been to our Navy's history, there was no books about it. Now, Langley's been talked about in any book on aircraft carriers. I'll talk a little bit about the Langley being the first one, but as far as a ship's biography, one did not exist. So Norman suggested that we do a collaborative project. Then I got pulled away to teach at the Naval Academy for a year, and then the Smithsonian basically gave me their Lindbergh Chair of Aerospace History and said, "Here is $100,000. Go write a book." And I was more than happy to take their money and write about the Langley. The problem is that happened during COVID, so I could not get the book done by 2022, the centennial of the ship. It took a little while longer to get into the National Archives and go through all the deck logs, and many of these deck logs had never been touched, never been opened since they were submitted 90 between 190 years ago. So it was a lot of great material that I had access to, and then some of the other sources I had, there was an organization called the Covered Wagon Association of all the veterans, and they had their memories and recordings. So I got quite a few prime sources, and basically I covered the history of the ship from when it was a collier, the USS Jupiter, back in 1912, until the decision to convert the ship in 1919, and then the ship's time as an aircraft carrier from 1922 to 1936, and then the ship's final metamorphosis into an aircraft tender. So it spends its last year as last year's taking care of Catalina PBYs, and eventually is going to wind up out in Manila. It's going to be in Manila on December the 8th, which is December the 7th, on this side of the date line. Survives the attacks on Manila to escape to Australia. Eventually, the Japanese are eventually going to sink the ship on February the 27th, 1942, off of Java. So that's kind of the fact that nobody had ever written about this ship was like, wow.
How often does that happen? If you're going to research a book, and you've written several, if you're going to research a book or decide whether or not you're actually going to, take the time to write a book, how often do you actually come across a subject where it just doesn't seem like anyone took the time or anyone even found it to be an interesting subject to write a book about?
Yeah, that is. I think that's a gift, and there's where you have your successful best-selling authors. Not that I'm getting rich off of Langley, or is to be able to find a subject. And my dissertation, I'll go back, another Naval Institute book on the Incidents at Sea Agreement. An agreement between us and Russia during the Cold War, where we were playing bumper cars on the high seas. This nobody had ever written on it, and so I did as my dissertation, and Naval Institute published it. It's now in its 5th edition. It's published in Chinese, who knows how many other languages, and it's the gift that keeps on giving, because every time we have an incident in the South China Sea, I get called up by like CNN or somebody or Fox to talk about the incidents at sea. So if you can find a subject that nobody has ever written about, it's a gift. It's so yeah.
So you get the proposal from, what was it, from the Smithsonian? Here's $100,000 to write a book.
Well, I submitted a grant request, and they have a fellowship, so I applied for it, and they said, and fortunately there was somebody at the Smithsonian who loved naval aviation history and advocated for me, and I got it. So it was a great opportunity. Unfortunately, it was the COVID year, so I didn't actually. They actually had an office for me in the Smithsonian, and during that whole year, I didn't get to go see my office. So yeah, it was hats off to the Smithsonian that they had the vision, to underwrite this book with this great money.
You had you and I have been trading emails before you coming on tonight, and you had provided a couple of key questions that I actually found interesting. Well, first of all, before we even get to that, who came up with the idea of putting a flat top on a cargo ship to land planes on it?
Well, actually, we got to give that. We have to credit the British with that, because they're the first ones to actually put a aircraft carrier to sea. During World War I, the problems the Brits had was these Zeppelins were coming over from Germany and dropping bombs on London at night. And what they needed to do is get an airplane up in the air over the North Sea to take them on. And seaplanes just didn't have the ability to do that. So they initially just put a ramp on a cruiser, and they launched a airplane to go after, and they shut down a Zeppelin. The problem is that then you had to land the airplane, so the airplane had to go back to land, to land on England. So So then the British said, well, why don't we put a landing platform? And they came up with the first aircraft carrier. It was a battleship, and they basically put a ramp on the forecastle and a ramp on the stern, and that was really the first aircraft carrier. It didn't work that well because it was hard to land airplanes on the because the central body of the ship. So we had that. Then the British actually started. There was they had a luxury liner they converted. They had another ship they converted, and then they started building one from the keel up. We're looking at this in the United States, and because we have observers over there, and we're proposing to build 1918. The General Board meets, and they say, well, we should have 6 aircraft carriers. Chief of Naval Operations would have none of it because he wanted ships out there before the end of the war, and to build 6 aircraft carriers, that's a long-term proposition. War's over. It's 1919. We're still interested in having an aircraft carrier, but we're not going to build one from the keel up. There's discussion of converting one of the passenger ships we got from confiscated from Germany during the war, and then when there's a realization that you really don't need to go 30 knots. You can get by going at at like 15. Kenneth Whiting, who was an aviation officer, who went across on the to France in 1917 on Jupiter's sister ship, the Neptune. They were carrying our first air detachment. He's looking at this ship, and he's there, this collier, and he sees possibilities because you empty out the holds of the ship. You got space to store, maintain airplanes. The propulsion plant is back aft. It's easy to maintain. All you need to do is take off all those derricks there and put on the flight deck, and voila, you got yourself an aircraft carrier.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is Whiting says, well, let's convert the Neptune, and there was a constructor, Clayton Simmers was a commander, and he said, no, what you want is the Jupiter, because the Jupiter has a unique propulsion plant, like a turbo electric plant. They built 3 colliers back in 1912, which each with a different propulsion plant to see how viable the plants were because they wanted to install them in battleships. Well, this plant on the Jupiter could get the ship up to 16 knots and had twin screws, and it was it's the first of its kind, and so that's how Jupiter got picked, and so it goes into the yards at Norfolk, and you have that conversion at one photograph. Looks like the Gilbert Erector cell on top. There
You're talking about this one right here.
Yeah. So yeah, it's that's at the Norfolk Navy Yard, and the ship is being converted. They were supposed to do it in under a year. It took them a good 2 to 3 years to get that job done.
Oh, that long. Okay.
Yeah, so in 1919 it was authorized, and and in March it really is not finished until September of 2022. It's commissioned in March of 2022 because they ran out of money. Okay, so what they did is they took because they ran out of money from the construction budget, they put it into service well before it was finished to steal money from the operations and maintenance budget from the active fleet to finish the job. So, a little creative bookkeeping by the Navy.
I want to get into how the takeoffs and landings went, but for those of you that are just joining us, we're talking to David Winkler, author of America's First Aircraft Carrier, the USS Langley and the Dawn of U.S. Naval Aviation. If you're interested in his book, definitely check out the U.S. Naval Institute Press publisher of this book, again, which was published, I believe, in 2024, right around a year ago.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
So when the Langley was commissioned and they start testing the notion of takeoffs and landings on this deck that's been essentially bolted onto, like you said, this Collier, the Jupiter, how did it go?
Well, while Langley's being converted, what the Navy does is they actually it's at a location where the Navy operating base is there in Norfolk. They install a turntable, like a railroad train turntable, on a field so that they can adjust the turntable to the wind. Okay, so and then they put on this turntable different landing configurations, cable setups, and they landed. Well, they ran airplanes over these these wires. Now, and this guy Mill Pride just kept working on it, and so they came up with this configuration. Now, originally, when we had the first landing on the Pennsylvania back in 1911, they came up with putting sandbags and cables across the way, and that kind of worked. Here, what you're seeing on this setup is they actually have wires that go fore and aft, and yeah, this is a beautiful shot here because you see these kind of like fiddle bridges, and on the you can kind of see hooks there on the wheels, the axle there that grab these wires that go fore and aft, and then of course underneath there is a couple of cables that go longitudinally across the ship. So it's kind of designed to keep the planes from bouncing over the side and then stopping them with that tail hook. Yeah, this is, you can see the fore and aft cables beautifully.
Oh,
And the fiddle bridges, of course, every time they landed, they had to basically reset the flight deck.
I actually see the fore and aft wires there. I never noticed them before, but you could see it clearly there. That actually sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. I mean, you could easily get tangled up in those wires, I would imagine, with the slightest crosswind.
Well, the idea is that on the axle, you got these hooks that catch those things, and that's to keep the plane from going over the side of the ship. There's a good shot of the, you can see the hooks on the axle of the airplane.
Yeah.
And the problem they had initially is that they didn't trust just having the cross deck cables trapping these planes, because there was just no give on the landing gear. Okay, they would.
Well, yeah, and you saw some of that in this footage. The landing gear, it's like,
just flat. I was going to say there's a lot of rough landings in this footage.
Rough landings, that's an understatement.
And you know what's amazing is that I'm going through the deck logs, and it's like plane crash, pilot bumps nose, pilot nose, hurts wrist, plane goes over side, pilot is yanked out of airplane. Pilot gets into the next airplane, takes off. These guys were indestructible. And the reason that is the term speed kills. These guys weren't going very fast. Okay. Mm-hmm. The planes are coming in about, maybe 25, 30 knots. So it is not, it's not like here's a cat shot. That's a good
Yeah. Hold on a second. I actually so yeah, okay, here. First of all, I got to tell everybody. So this, for those of you that aren't aware, I have a fascination with the National Archives, and the National Archives is great because they got all kinds of amazing footage. You never know what you're going to get. So when I found out we were going to be lucky enough to have David on to talk about the Langley, I immediately started going to the National Archives, and you come across this footage, which is just crazy. It's crazy. So this is where this footage came from. So you talk about this catapult shot. Let me rewind a little bit.
Yeah, it's actually on. They actually have this seaplane. It's on a kind of like a device, a trolley that goes down and lifts off. So this is, when they actually did the first one, problem was is that the bottom of the two batons, whatever, actually held on to the trolley. They had planking on the deck, and everybody was pointing up at the airplane. I think it was Whiting was the pilot, and they said, if you land, you're going to sink. And so he just quickly ditched the plane next to the carrier and just came up underneath the crane and hooked the airplane on before it could sink. It was very well done. So
do you? Do you have an estimated number? Do you have an estimated number at all of how many planes they lost during this period of learning how to do carrier operations?
That's a good question.
Well, I tell you what, I did everything possible. Every time there was like a plane crash or something, I kind of noted it in the book. So I actually might have to someday actually sit down and say 1, 2, 3, and what's actually remarkable is that they're able to fix these planes and get them back in the air. So
it's like I was just kind of curious because I'm looking at some of these near crashes, and it's like some of them, you can totally recover that and repair it, and then there's like 1 or 2 where you go, that might need a little bit more work shoreside.
Yes, but
and were a lot of these, maybe not this plane here because it looks like it's got a larger engine and everything, but some of these earlier landings. Let me back up here for a sec.
Yeah, like that one.
Was it this one? So you're talking about real small engines, and all right. So the landing gear collapses, right? But these were wooden framed planes at the time, weren't they?
Yeah. So I think this is a VE-7 Voight aircraft, and it's almost like one of these flying kites that you have today. In the later 20s, you're getting into steel frame aircraft. Now, the one thing to keep in mind during the first year, what they're really doing is trying to increase the capability of the landing gear to take heavier and heavier aircraft. And the way you see the fore and aft wires. What's very interesting is the cross wires are attached to weights that are dropped over the side of the ship. They're kind of like in chambers, so you can adjust the weights depending on the aircraft coming in. If you have a heavier aircraft coming in, you add weight to the weights, and you adjust accordingly depending on how heavy the aircraft is. In about 1930, they get away from this weight system, and it's kind of like a coil hydraulic system that they install on but it's very primitive at first, as far as the cross cables.
When you were talking about, you're going through the logs and you're seeing landing gear collapse, plane goes over the side, pilot gets in another plane, that plane gets damaged. At the time when you talk about all of these damaged planes, did the brass, did the higher ups consider this to be successful, or was it considered to be a failure?
Oh no, I think they were very successful
Okay.
as far as um, you know, we're building we're building planes. They're relatively cheap, and it's yeah, we're and they're constantly improving these aircraft. So yeah, there is and they're able to repair them. So it's not that much. I think the big concern is budget wise in the 1920s, and then we get into the Depression. Then there's kind of like pressure to hold off on building airplanes.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Go for it.
So, do you in your book? I look forward to reading it. Do you in your book kind of cover the discussion between when the aircraft carrier becomes the center of the fleet, or do you talk about the battleship aircraft carrier conversation
Yeah.
up at the the CNO level?
Yeah, it's kind of the story is okay. Battleships get sunk at Pearl Harbor. Aha, we have this realization that we have these aircraft carriers. The real story is that the aircraft carriers had been integrated in these fleet problems through the 1920s into 1930s. So people understood what the capabilities were, and it's actually the battleship folks who rallied to the cause of the aircraft carrier. There's this guy Billy Mitchell who basically wants to take all the airplanes away from the Navy in the early 1920s and form the U.S. Air Force. Okay, and the battleship admirals are saying, "Wait a second, we love these airplanes because these airplanes go out and can find the enemy fleet, tell us what their dispositions are, and then they can tell us, how the shells are landing from our broadsides. The accuracy was just because our battleships are able to fire over the horizon, so they need spotters, and so the battleship admirals are very supportive. Half the aircraft. Not only do you have on the Langley, but you also have aircraft being put on cruisers, battleships, these float planes. So aviation is becoming a very big component. The guy who really makes the difference for aircraft carriers is Joseph Mason Reeves. He is the Naval Academy class of 96 or so. His claim to fame is he's the inventor of the football helmet because he got concussed so many times at the Naval Academy is that they said you're out of here, and so he comes to the football field wearing this leather hat. So Reeves goes on to become the first commanding officer of the Jupiter. Okay, so he's familiar with what Jupiter's capable of. New technology as far as the engineering plan is concerned. Eventually, he is going to become Commander Air Squadron's battle fleet. Okay, we didn't have the Pacific Fleet or the Atlantic Fleet during the 1920s. We had the battle fleet on the West Coast and the scouting fleet on the East Coast. The battle fleet was based out of San Diego. And if you got that one picture of the Langley at San Diego, there you go. Reeves made that his flagship, and basically he brought all his aviators together at North Air Island, which is the headquarters of West Coast Aviation, and said he gave something called like the 1,000 questions speech, and the 1,000 questions we ain't squat unless we can go out and prove ourselves to the fleet that we can not only scout for the battleships, but become an offensive weapon ourselves. The ability to drop bombs. What that means is we can't attack like one or two planes. we got to take off in mass. So he's going to push things. Langley, you take a look at it, it's really designed for about a dozen aircraft. He's going to make it change it from an experimental aircraft into an operational aircraft and deploy with 42 aircraft. And the way he does that is he loads the ship. This is something that there's a good image in there. Is to cram all these planes on the flight deck and then take them. They take off like one every 12 seconds to get all these airplanes in the air. And like in 1928, they actually staged an attack on Pearl Harbor, catches the base flat-footed. So this is how Reeves' vision that aviation is going to be a major offensive arm of the fleet, and Reeves eventually is going to become the commander-in-chief of the whole U.S. fleet in the 1930s. So, he's going to be putting together carrier task forces with these new carriers like the Enterprise and the Saratoga and Lexington. And the Ranger, and of course Langley's going to lead the scene in about 1936. So it's not really the gun club. You always hear this, but the battleship admirals, obviously until the late 1930s. The amount of steel a broadside of a battleship could deliver upon an enemy fleet far exceeded what airplanes could drop. Okay, so that's why the battle line remained the prime weapon into the late 1930s. It's when you start with to build aircraft such as the Dauntless dive bombers that can drop heavier bombs, then the tide begins to turn as far as the impact of airplanes as a weapon system.
Mm-hmm.
I got a question. Actually, John, before I hit David with my question, did you have anything?
Yeah. So I actually have two questions.
Go for it.
Would you be able to quickly talk about the namesake of the Langley, and if possible, do you know much about the sister ships that went missing?
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. Langley is named for, Samuel Pierpont Langley, who was at one time, I think, who was taught at the Naval Academy, and he was an early, he was racing against the Wright brothers to build, his own first flying aircraft. Didn't succeed, but because of his ties with the Navy and his efforts at aviation, they named the ship for him. The sister ship, of course, the Neptune, and then of course the Cyclops was the other sister ship. It's going to go down, I guess, about 1917 or 18, carrying, I think it was like bauxite. I think coming up from Central America in the purported Bermuda Triangle. So an interesting thing about why these ships came into existence. Remember, we had the Great White Fleet that went around the world in 1907. The problem was that for that fleet to go around the world, we had to charter British ships to coal them. So I think we had to charter something like 35 British colliers to keep our fleet afloat. And when Congress got wind of that, they just this is an embarrassment because we're looking at Britain as a potential foe. Okay, we don't have that special relationship just yet, and Congress is saying, you're telling me that we had to in wartime. We can't depend on the Brits. So that was the genesis for these colliers in the first place. The Great White Fleet trip around.
Did that cover what you were looking for, John?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
We do have another question, real quick.
Go for it.
Did they ever find behind the Cyclops, which is the one that's most famous to have disappeared.
No. That's going to be great. When they find that, that's going to be breaking news. So no.
Mm.
Yeah, I remember Clive Cussler wrote a book where he had the Cyclops as one of his focuses.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, his books are fiction, but they're historical fiction, and he uses real ships, and the Cyclops is one of them.
There's a fellow by the name of Marvin Barish who has written 2 volumes on the Cyclops, and he's whenever you've seen like on the History Channel, a show about the Cyclops, he's typically the talking head.
When they decided to throw a flat top on top of the Jupiter, in this picture that you emailed to me and we've got up here, you can see that they still keep the bridge, the pilot house, whatever you want to call it.
That's right.
Right there under the deck. Okay.
Yes.
So when you, where is it?
Yeah, you can kind of see the bridge wings sticking out to either side.
Yeah, and kind of in this picture here, you can barely see the bridge, but more importantly, you can see how much the deck, if you will, overhangs the bridge. Did that cause any navigation problems?
Not really, because the bridge came out. It's kind of interesting because I served on an ammunition ship that had the same configuration that you had King Post up forward that blocked your view ahead. So basically, I had to just run back and forth between the port and starboard side to see where I was going, and that's the case you had there. You can see that you're looking there at the starboard side. There's a pretty good size overhang there, so you can run out and kind of see what's ahead. So now here's something that they wound up doing. One of the reasons why they were able to get 42 aircraft is they actually extended the flight deck at about 1928 time frame. So there's an early picture of the ship before they extended the flight deck.
Okay, that's an early one. Hold on, let me see if I've got any later ones.
Yeah, and the way you know that's an early one is because it's only got one stack, and the exhaust system was not good. So they replaced that one stack, and it came out with those 2 stacks you see that kind of could tilt out towards the side while they were doing flight operations. And in this picture, you can see they've extended the flight deck aft. They were going to actually extend the flight deck forward, and then they just realized that really would block the line of vision for the bridge. So.
Yeah, there was another picture here. I think it's this one where you can see they had to relocate the stacks.
Yeah, that's the first version. And about
that's the first version. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
In 1920, I think it was late 23 that they replaced it with that version that you can see. With that, and you can see the 2 stacks are tilted over.
Yeah.
Did they have like a hangar deck as we would know it today on aircraft carriers?
Good question, Shane. Hold on a second.
Right.
I got.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's the elevator, but
So that is a great question because actually the answer is no.
That's what I thought.
But what they have here, they could, you had the hulls, from the collier. So the airplanes were stored in the hulls, and they had this overhead crane system. So the plane would go down that elevator, would be rolled off the elevator, and it would be hooked up to this overhead like a trolley system, and through the air would be placed over one of the hulls, lowered into the hull, just like cargo. And then down below they would work on the airplane. When the airplane's ready to go, then the crane would pick up the airplane, They bring it over to where the elevator is, and they would lower it and then roll it onto the elevator and bring it up. So now they did, there was some space on that main deck there that some airplanes were stowed there, but they didn't work on airplanes like they do on today's aircraft carrier, where the hangar deck was where they did the maintenance. They actually did maintenance in the holes below.
Jeez, that sounds pretty complicated.
Yeah.
For those of you that are just joining us, again, we're talking to David Winkler, author of America's First Aircraft Carrier about the USS Langley, and you can check out his book on the U.S. Naval Institute Press. Let's see. So going into the Langley's history, and you kind of touched on this briefly, it gets converted into what is more of a seaplane tender than, about a third of its deck is removed. Yep. And so it goes into service during World War II in the Pacific.
Right. Yeah, it is actually converted in late 1936-37 up at Mare Island. I gave a talk about this at Mare Island last summer. That was a lot of fun. And it becomes the flagship of like service squadrons, and the Commodore is Ernest King, who's going to be the future, commander in chief of the U.S. Navy during World War II. King takes the Langley up into the up to Alaska. They're scouting sites for seaplane bases, and out to Midway Island and French frigate shoals, and they're just exploring where you could set up seaplane bases in anticipation with a battle against Japan. And Langley's going to be participating in fleet exercises, supporting seaplanes, which are serves as scouts for the battle fleet. And here's the thing: is with these Catalina airplanes coming online, these big flow planes that you see during World War II. It took a ship like Langley that size, to service them. Not these little float planes that you're familiar. We saw in the earlier photograph. These are big planes, and so they retrofitted Langley not only with additional fuel storage capability, but really heavy cranes so that they could lift these airplanes out of the water and put them down on deck so they could do maintenance.
When you had said that King used the Langley as a flagship, and because the Langley was older, was it a little bit nicer than maybe a typical World War II ship that didn't have, that was really just bare steel? Was the Langley more, did it have nice cabins on it? Is there any way to know?
That's a good question, because I know there was one of the interesting stories about Langley is that the first couple of executive officers wound up living in the pigeon house, the pigeon coop on the stern of the ship. And you can barely see it there, this extended flight deck. But there actually is a pigeon house, because when Langley came into commission, the whole thought was, okay, can't put radio sets on airplanes, they're too heavy. So when we see the enemy fleet, we'll release a pigeon, and the pigeon will, there you see the pigeon house. The pigeons will return with reports on where the enemy battle fleet is. So they tested this concept while the ship was being constructed. They would take a pigeon up to Washington and let it go, and return to the Langley. They're in Norfolk. They would take them to Richmond. They all would come back to the ship. The problem is when the ship went out to sea, when they released the pigeons, they all went back to where the ship was in Norfolk. So, apparently pigeons cannot locate ships that move, and the whole pigeon idea came to naught. So, when Reeves and the staff for the ship, they took all the good quarters up forward, and the XO of the ship, who happened to be Commander John Towers, wound up living in the pigeon house. He wasn't too happy with that. So
there was that question from Greg.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Did the flight deck make the ship less stable?
Well, the way they countered that was when they converted the ship. The joke out on the fleet is that the Langley is the has the biggest guns in the fleet, and the way why that joke came about is they took all the coastal artillery that was being taken out of service. They cut up these massive gun, 14-inch guns, and they put them in the the hull there on the bottom of the ship along the keel, and then they cover all this metal up with concrete. So the whole idea is that you had this tremendous ballast. And so when the ship went to sea, the yard workers at the Navy Yard said, that ship's a goner. First wind is going to tip over. Nope. With all that weight as ballast from all these artillery pieces on the East Coast, the ship rode very well.
During World War II, I think the deck of the carriers, it was some kind of, I think it was like Washington oak or something like that. Did they use the same stuff on the Langley?
Yeah, no, that's the other thing is the decks were wood, and I think the philosophy was wood is lighter. The other philosophy was, okay, if there's a bomb we could patch the hole over real quick. Unfortunately, we're going to learn, in World War II with kamikazes and everything, airplanes and bombs going through wooden deck into hangar decks full of bombs and fuel. That's almost going to cost. It is going to cost us a couple light carriers, escort carriers. When the British showed up in the Pacific Fleet with their steel deck aircraft carriers and a kamikaze hit the flight deck, the British, all they did is call sweepers and dusted the kamikaze over inside the ship. So that was kind of a wake up moment for design. So ships like the Midway there on out were built with steel decks.
Mm-hmm.
Where was that? Oh, it was the second to last comment. Gregory Spring asked, why is there so much water being discharged overboard on both sides of the hull? And I'm wondering which picture.
Well, you can see it there. Yeah. Some of it. And right here is a good one too.
Yeah. Are they emptying ballast tanks there?
Yeah, that could be ballast, or they're they might be flushing. The steam plants. The boilers are located for that side of the ship. So I don't know. Maybe they're flushing water out of the boilers or something.
Depends on how far away they are from the coast. If they're in international water or near a coastline.
I really don't think they care too much.
I was going to say at that time. Yeah. Hey, so this was a colorized photo that I had found online of the Langley. I wish I could remember who posted this so I could give him credit. But was the Langley white or was it gray?
It's more of a gray color.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then you see the color of the deck. I don't know when you're used to seeing these ships in black and white, but when you're flying a plane overhead, it really the deck really stood out.
It could have been a light gray that
Yeah.
almost looked gray in the sun.
Yeah, it really is hard. Of course, all the pictures we have are black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is they may adjust the paint color depending on what coast you're on. Certainly, I think when the ship was out in the Philippines, they may have liked the color. So, but yeah.
You had one of the other questions that you had sent me. You had said that there was a crazy story surrounding its commissioning.
Yeah, I mentioned that the whole fact that the ship was commissioned early, so that they could, keep the books balanced.
Oh, the money. Oh, yeah. Okay.
But one thing about the commissioning is something that's kind of cool. You see in this picture there is that they have these retractable masts for navigation purposes.
Oh, yeah.
So, it was like a hydraulic system that, once you're done with flight operations, these masts would pop out from the deck, and you would, there you go, for that navigation lights. And, the problem is in March 1922, it's that these hydraulic masts weren't working yet. So when they came to the flag raising, raise the flag, and the chief petty officer said, well, where am I going to put the flag? And it says, you figure it out. So the ship is put into commission. Let's go raise the flag. And this guy puts the flag on a broomstick and basically runs up to the flight deck and hammers it against the side. And I think their expression from the operations officers, this was the most effed up commissioning ceremony I've ever seen in the Navy. And Whiting says in the future, commissioning ceremonies for aircraft carriers are going to be big deals. So it was quite the circus.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
So the Langley, and you had talked about this when you first came on, the Langley ultimately gets torpedoed.
Yeah, by one of our own destroyers.
It was bombed, I guess, and it was it was crippled, if you will, by a Japanese bomb, or actually five of them, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, the ship, they put some anti-aircraft guns on it, but they just didn't have the reach to go after these, I guess, mid-level Japanese aircraft. And basically, the ship, I think, evaded like 2 previous runs, and then the Japanese kind of figured out, what was happening here, and they overflew and systematically dropped bombs in a way that there was no way you could evade getting hit. And they could line up as these because the anti-aircraft guns on the Langley just couldn't reach up and touch them. So they got I think it was like 5 bomb hits. Eventually, there was flooding in the engineering spaces. And once the turbo electric drive is shorted out, you're dead. But very few people got killed. And they evacuated most of the crew and onto these 2 destroyers, the Whipple and the Edson. Then they moved the crew onto the Pecos, which was an oiler. And tragically, the Pecos is going to be bombed and sunk a day or 2 later with heavy loss of life. A lot of the Langley's crew is lost on the Pecos. The Edsel is is going to be sunk. The Australians, they just found the Etzel south of Java, and it was very heroic. The Etzel ran into the Japanese fleet, and the Japanese battleships expended hundreds of rounds to try to sink this thing. The Whipple finally arrives and pulls off as many survivors as they can, but there's a submarine threat, so Whipple's got to pull away, and there's still people in the water, and they're left to their to eventually drown. It's a sad case.
Yeah. Let's see.
So we do have another question. How important would you say that Langley was to the development of all aircraft carrier operations and protocols?
That's a good one.
Very important in that a lot of the protocols. Of course, you see the flight deck. Eventually, you're going to get rid of those fore and aft wires that just go with the cross wires. Langley's going to introduce that. There, the whole idea of landing signal officer, the LSO. Initially, there's two stories behind that. First of all, the reason why you're seeing this video here is because there was a cameraman who was supposed to record every landing, and got to a point where he didn't want to waste film. If he saw somebody was coming in, it was going to be a good landing, he didn't bother cranking the film. But if he saw that this is going to be a spectacular film clip, he started cranking away. Well, imagine you're a pilot of an airplane and you're approaching the Langley and you're looking down and you see the film guy there is cranking away. That's kind of a sign to you that maybe you need to abort the landing. So that was one story on why LSOs came about. But the other one is Whiting was up there, and I think he started waving with his hat, and then people started paying attention to what he was doing, and then they realized that we need somebody to help guide these planes down. So you can see right there on the
Wait, hold on a second. That almost sounds like that could be a great subject
right
for a
there.
video. Yeah. So you're telling me, I want to rewind that. I don't see how.
There's the LSO there. He's waving them in.
So you're telling me that the pilots are coming in and they're seeing the camera guy all of a sudden just start filming.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, maybe I should wave off.
Yeah.
But there was no wave off at the time because there was no LSO. So so that was the impetus for the LSO was the cameraman.
Yeah,
I think that's a hilarious story.
That's one, and the other one is of course Whiting, and it's kind of interesting. You see the flagman there; he's over on the starboard side. Once they put an island on the ship, I think the guys can go over to the other side.
Okay.
So carriers today, I think the LSO is on the other side. So it's I have a good LSO story. In 1931, this guy Rufus Zogbaum is the commanding officer of the Langley. His father was a well-known illustrator in the 19th century, and Zogbaum's got a problem in that he's got the Assistant Secretary for Naval Aviation, David Ingalls, is the Navy's first ace in World War I, and now he is the Assistant Secretary for Naval Aviation, and he's flying out to the Langley, out to San Diego, because he wants to get carrier qualified. He wants to, and here the Assistant Secretary of Aviation flies his own airplane, and he's flying with Will Rogers, who is the humorist columnist who was very famous at the time. So they go aboard the Langley, and Ingalls is insistent that he's going to go and get his traps in. So Rogers, I think, makes a bet with him. He says, "I bet you're going to forget to drop your hook down." And Ingalls kind of blows him off. So sure enough, Ingalls approaches the airplane, and he forgot to lower his hook, so they wave him off. The LSO said, and he taps the.
Pardon, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we appear to have lost Ken. He has disappeared. Shane, you're muted. Wait, what the heck happened to Ken? So we'll hold off for just a second.
No.
Oh, don't worry about it. Oh, keep
He's
going.
back.
No,
Yeah, keep going. The
No,
film
okay.
is rolling, so that's good.
Yeah,
Everything was fine. All right. My cat just walked across the keyboard. So
Oh, sure. That's of course what it was.
yeah. So I apologize. All right.
So anyway, just to finish the story up, is
Please.
that Ingalls is waved off 3 times and he's getting PO'd. And then finally, this chief petty officer grabs a chalkboard and spells hook on it and waves it at the guy, and he gets it and makes his landing, and then he puts Will Rogers in an airplane, and then they make a couple more traps. So that's how the Assistant Secretary of Navy got his carrier calls done.
When you look at these images or the footage here, and Connor and I were talking about this before we went live. It's amazing to think that this footage is basically 110 years old.
Yeah.
And so obviously they want, they're not just filming for the hell of it. They want to try and use this as a learning experience. What can they learn? And I have to believe this is probably the start of high-speed film when you're recording this footage, or you're recording these cat takeoffs here. I mean, the quality is incredible to think it's over 100 years old.
Yeah. Well, obviously they digitized a lot of the stuff at the National Archives. So, but yeah, it is quite, these are DT-2s. They're like our first torpedo planes, and it is, they're heavy aircraft. This is what they were. I was talking about the weights. These aircraft required very heavy weights. Well, in this case, this DT-2 is not going to be. It's going to land alongside the Langley, and then they're going to back on because it's got the floats on it.
Okay, so that was going to be one of my other questions. So, when obviously, with the floats, it can't land on the deck. But so the Langley at the time, before it was a seaplane tender, it still had some type of a crane mechanism where you could hoist the plane back on board.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, David, it's been great having you on. I definitely appreciate the history lesson when it comes to the Langley.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you dug up this great footage. It was fun to watch.
Oh yeah, well, so it's interesting because we have people on and repeat guests as well. We just get so many photos and everything, and then you sent me a nice tidy little email with I think like eight images. It's like, oh no, we can do better than that. So yeah, I appreciate being direct and to the point, but we love pictures, we love and so when I was able to find that footage with the National Archives, I figured, well, I would just have it on deck just in case we needed it. And,
what was really awesome was you had you didn't share it tonight, but the crossing of the line ceremony. That was amazing footage because the story there is in 1936, Bull Reeves takes the whole Navy, the whole battle fleet south of the equator. And there are 30,000 sailors who are polywogs, and they're going to be initiated to become shellbacks.
Oh, you're talking about, I know what you're talking. You're talking about that link I sent you.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can pull that up.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. I'll see
so it's just, so you had the footage there of what was happening on the Langley, and I talk about the crossing of the line ceremony in a couple of pages in the book because it was well recorded in words at the time. It was quite festive, spectacular, and if you see the footage, very painful. For all those sailors who were going through the experience for the first time. Imagine.
And
Yeah. So
And for the first time, they've got this huge deck to have the the fire hose with and the baby.
the
Before it's
pool,
always cramped.
they had a pool. They had to go through this pool. It was and they were all getting hit with the fire hoses, and you had and that you were able to capture that. It was it was kind of fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna find it. I think I found it. Hold on a second here. Now I just have to see if I can share it. It's brutal. I mean, it's brutal.
It really is. And now the opening was they're servicing these Catalina aircraft that we were talking about, and they're big aircraft.
Oh wow, that's a great shot there. How much? So another question. How much respect did you gain for these first pilot sailors when you were doing your research?
It is the bravery, the dedication to what they were trying to do, and there is a daredevil spirit here that and I think it carries through to aviators today, and I say that as a black shoe. Okay,
Yes.
aviators have a certain swagger.
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping
another one
footage. I wasn't able to pull it up.
Okay.
Yeah, it was worth
another one quickly here. It says, did they have machine shops and personnel to repair these aircraft, or was this too early in the evolution of carrier aviation?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's, as I mentioned, these holes that the ship used to hold their coal, they were converted to machine shops. So they could do a lot of work on these airplanes, and you had these enlisted guys who could do wonders. I was able to find the diary of one of these guys down at the National Museum for Naval Aviation in Pensacola, and this guy really had a good understanding of aircraft and how they worked through these descriptions. I think I actually saw he had one of his images flipping through some of the.
Yeah, you know what? We did. That was number 12. Hold on a second here. Number 12 of, so I need to go to this one.
Yeah, that's the guy. And this guy's a fellow by the name, I think Weller is his name. And he is joins the Navy during World War I, and gets experience. He's like an electrician's mate, and he meets a yeomanette. Okay, one of our first female sailors, and gets yeomanette pregnant, and so he leaves the Navy. He's hoping for a job at the Norfolk Navy Yard, but after the war, the jobs are not to be had. So he rejoins the Navy, gets assigned to the Langley, and so he has this diary that it's very descriptive of what's happening, and he also at the end of each page entry gives a review of the movie that was shown that night. So it's kind of like early Siskel and Ebert.
I think I was able to find that video. Let me, while we still have you on, let me see if I can pull this up. Let's see. So it would be this one. Can you guys see that?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so what you got here, and David talked about it earlier. During World War II, the Langley was converted to a seaplane carrier, but not just any ship could handle the PBYs. So this footage is taken from the Langley of, I think this is, I don't think this is an earlier version, one of the original versions of the PBY shown here. But what David was talking about when they crossed the equator was, bear with me a second.
Right there.
There we go.
Look at this. I mean, these guys, it's brutal what they did to these guys. I mean, look at that. Shane was right. You know, when you're on the deck of a carrier, you got to run a further distance.
This is a very
Purely
interesting-
voluntary, though.
Yeah,
Is at the time, was it voluntary?
no.
Oh, I don't think so. Yeah.
There's the king of the court.
Yeah. There's the royal baby, the guy maybe with the guy, the naked guy or something with just his skivvies on.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was it was pretty brutal up until they started. Yeah, they're smacking them. You got the royal barber, that's cutting your hair in like any
Wonderful
different way.
haircuts.
So yeah, and this
Or
is clearly-
laundryman.
Yeah. So and what do they call this again? It's a
Crossing the line.
Crossing the line. Yeah, they're crossing the equator.
they're just beating on these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think let me see if
This
I
is-
can.
This was a day that you
They're up on
wanted
a
to be a
flight deck.
well-traveled sailor.
So it opens up on the flight deck, and here you have the.
I mean,
Oh man.
yeah. So you got the ceremony of the whole thing.
Did they keep these costumes on standby, or did they have to make this?
This is all. They made them all.
Oh wow!
Oh, this doesn't look voluntary to me. Look at this. Does not look voluntary to me.
Well,
Yeah.
I've read a few accounts from World War II where you didn't have to partake, but if you said no,
Oh yeah.
and then you change your mind, then no, you can't do that. And
Dave-
then you
David-
feel like you're not part of the crew.
David,
Yeah.
did you ever cross the equator?
I was fortunate. I did cross the equator, but I was on a USNS ship. So, we. So yeah, I got the certificate, but I'd have to endure any of this stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this
that-
is not as common these days.
They do they do a crossing of the line ceremony, but it's one thing to keep in mind with the co-ed crews, they've got to be a little more
More
respectful.
sensitive.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just like any hazing thing, that trend has changed in colleges and things like that. But yeah, there's
crazy
still the
to watch
Royal, and Davy Jones and
Yeah, the one thing that's changed a lot was the is Chief Petty Officer initiation, and there's Master Chief Jim Lucy did a wonderful book on that. How that basically Chief's initiations were basically a pat in the back, and maybe they might throw you in the pool, and then things really got out of hands in the 80s and the 70s and 80s, and then the Navy basically had to change the whole culture about it. So
yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, we still have to this day we have CPO initiations on board one evening, so they come on board at about 1800 or so, and I've stayed on board during those initiations, and they tell me you're not to be seen. Do not look at what we're doing. Do not listen to anything of what we're doing. Stay in your office. And I've had to, I had to walk the deck, and I made sure to keep my head down, and because they were outside on the fantail, and so I just kept my eyes down just out of respect for their initiation procedure. So
okay, I don't know. It sounds like they're still going old school there.
not so, it used to be bowling balls and things like that, but at least from what I've researched and talked to older CPOs, from the 70s and 80s and 90s, but there's still, you still hear things.
Mhm.
So
Well, I want to thank David
thank you, David.
Winkler, again, author of America's First Aircraft Carrier, the USS Langley, and the Dawn of U.S. Naval Aviation. You can check out, if you're interested in this book, check out www.usni.org. I believe I also have the link. The link should also appear in the description of this video. So whether you're watching on History X, the Buffalo Naval Park, USS Slater. In the description of the video, the link to David's book should also be appearing there. So as you can see, by having David on tonight, it's a fascinating story of, you know, how the Langley came about, how it was constructed, as well as, and we covered the takeoff and landings, which didn't always go so well. So again, if you're interested in David's book, it's a fascinating subject, and I highly recommend you check it out. So David Winkler.
Question?
Oh yeah, go for it, Shane. What do you got?
Just real quick. So you're going to be in Buffalo for the HINZA?
Oh, thank you for bringing that up.
Historical maritime?
Yeah, let me do a plug for that. I am the program chair, the co-program chair.
Oh, yes.
Of the conference, what you know, the 12th Maritime Heritage Conference, which the Historic Naval Ships Association is the core, key component that you bring to critical mass. Every typically 3 or 4 years, the pandemic, the last one was done actually in 2018 in New Orleans. All the clans come together. The historic naval ship people, the maritime museum, the lighthouse people, maritime artists. So it's a couple hundred people will gather in Buffalo on the 24th through the 27th of September. This is the theme of the conference is celebrating milestones. There are 2 big milestones I'm thinking of. Is first of all, you get the 200th anniversary of the Erie Canal. That's happening at that time. There's going to be a World Canals Conference right beforehand. And then there's 250th anniversary of the Navy is this year. So, that's something worth commemorating. So, yeah, the National Maritime Historical Society, seahistory.org is their website. They have all the information about the conference. So if anybody's interested in they have a paper, the topic they want to talk about, go to that website and they'll, my contact information is there as far as if you want to submit a paper. So, yeah, I hope to see everybody up in Buffalo at the end of September.
Well, you're definitely going to see Shane there.
Yeah.
And then another thing that I wanted to ask you about in digging into your pedigree, if you will, your history, your resume, I came across a note that said you were involved in saving the USS Olympia as a museum ship.
Yeah, I note that. I wouldn't say I saved the ship.
Oh no! You saved it. I want to hear how you saved it.
Yeah. What happened was, the Independent Seaport Museum was actually they wanted to give the ship up. The problem is, I guess, the leadership at the Independent Seaport Museum, the executive director, I think, was building houses out on some island with the profits from the museum, and that when you do that, that discourages donations. So it's a Philly thing, and the museum decided, okay, well, we're just not going to have the Olympia anymore, and they were going to take the ship out to scuttle it. And what we did is say we organized an effort for other cities to try and save the ship. So there was a group from Mare Island, there was a group from Baltimore, I think there was a group from down in South Carolina, and the Naval Historical Foundation at the time was working with the Navy and the Independence to find somebody who would take the ship off their hands. I think what happened was the Independent Seaport Museum wound up realizing that, the only reason people really come to see the Independent Seaport Museum is to see the Olympia. So, they realized that they were going to sink their cash cow. The reason why, in the end, they got new leadership, they got their act together, and they decided to keep and preserve the ship. So but I think what we did by having these different teams come together is kind of like we bought the folks in Philadelphia some time to resolve their internal problems and come to the realization that this is we have our reasons to exist here. Why would we want to give it up? It's a ship it still needs to be overhauled. The ship. The story behind the Olympia is that in 1945, Franklin Roosevelt wanted to have a museum in Washington with the Olympia, the Hartford, the Constellation, and so he had during World War II. He's having the Olympia overhauled for this museum, and then he died.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so you had these ships. Hartford eventually sinks pierside down in Norfolk in the 1950s. Olympia is taken by this group up to Philadelphia. Constellation is in Baltimore, and they've kind of trudged on, but they're not getting the love. They're just being patched. Kept afloat. The good news about Olympia, if you have a situation such as in Baltimore with the Sullivans, the Olympia is kind of like sitting on the bottom as it is, so it's not going to sink too far.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, David, thanks for joining us tonight. It was great. You gave us way more time than I could have hoped for. Learned a lot about the Langley, and I want to
have me come on sometime and talk about. This is the Destroyers at War from the Naval Institute Press just came out, and the Mighty A about the USS Langley just came out.
Well, you actually kind of beat me to it because I was going to ask you before we let you go what do you have in the works or what's coming up next? So do me a favor, hold up those books one more time.
These just came out last month. One from Casemate and one from the Naval Institute Press. Destroyers at War, and which actually is a memoir by Admiral Holloway. It's a prequel to his aircraft carriers at war, and then Mighty A is a history of the USS Atlanta.
The Atlanta, got it. And are you in the works on a book right now?
I'm not really. I just wrote a chapter for a book on Vietnam, and I think I want to go out and talk about these three and a fourth book I published in the past year. So it's I go out and talk about the recent writings, and then I'll look at it. Well, I got things to do. I got this Maritime Heritage Conference. I'm a busy guy.
I was going to say, it sounds like you got your hands full. So yeah. All right. Well, it was definitely nice meeting you tonight. I'm going to do this one last time. There we go. David Winkler, America's first aircraft carrier from the U.S. Naval Institute. The link should appear in the description of this video if you're interested. David, thank you for joining us tonight. You were real generous with your time.
Thank you so much, David.
All right. So we are going to kick you off and talk behind your back. Okay. So hope you have a very nice evening. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Well, that was interesting.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that was more information than I think any of us were expecting, or a longer conversation than any of us were expecting.
Yeah.
Well, we have our fifth co-host here now.
What? Oh, the cat. Yeah, he was not. He was not.
Oh, he's.
Yeah. So, but David, I always want to point this out. Having David on tonight was the result of Shane's work with Sam at the U.S. Naval Institute Press for lining up these authors. So definitely want to say thanks to the Naval Institute Press. You can check them out at www.usni.org.
It's been a great partnership so far, and again, the year of the author, and we'll be bringing you authors for a good portion of the year.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right, let's see. So let me pull this up. What do we want to talk about next?
Who wants? We generally go John first.
Yeah, you know what? Let's go John first. And someone was asking, who's the guy with the boat? That yeah, thanks, Connor. So unfortunately tonight, John's web camera is not working, or he didn't have it. Left it at work, maybe. Say hi, John.
Hello. Yes, apologies. I forgot the camera at work, so you're just dealing with my voice and a picture of the ship. And,
so yeah.
It's kind of funny though.
What's funny?
I don't know. I just imagine like it's booming from the passageways. The 1MC is talking. Yeah, just leave it like that and just get going.
So John Epp, curator at the USS Slater in Albany, New York. You can check out their YouTube channel simply by searching for USS Slater. And fun fact, the Slater has now surpassed the Buffalo Naval Park in subscribers.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, you have. So let's see.
No, they haven't.
No, I'm kidding. I know it irritates Shane, but
the kid has.
Yeah. No, but the Slater, all joking aside, has actually hit 6,000 subscribers.
Yeah, they have. Absolutely.
Yes.
That's great.
You can also check out their website, ussslater.org. John, what's the latest? You guys are now open for the season, right?
Yeah, so we opened last Wednesday. It's wonderful seeing the ship come alive again with people walking her decks.
Yep.
Seeing the tour guides back at the museum that some we haven't seen since November. So it's been great catching up with them. The temperatures this week have been actually rather cold to the point where we have the water running through the taps on the sink because it's below freezing at night right now.
Oh, you keep it like slowly running?
Yep, just hopefully to prevent things from bursting. We've never really had issues, but so it's a little too cold to do much outdoor maintenance or restoration, so it's still limited to the interior. Primarily working on getting some air compressors up and running in the forward engine room, just some spares, and then just general upkeep of the ship. In approximately 2 weeks, we'll be hosting our spring work week. We're actually expecting a rather large crowd this year.
That's fantastic.
I think last count was close to 40 people. We'll be living on the ship for about a week from around the country.
Jeez.
And just working on projects for us. A lot of painting, a lot of chipping, but there's always a lot of electrical work going on, restoring phone systems and call buttons, things of that nature. So it's going to be exciting. It's always a lot of fun. Yes, sir.
Sorry. So who sets the projects for the work week that you guys sponsor?
Primarily Tim Rizzuto. He creates a list of projects. This year I've added on to his list of things I would like to see done. So we'll see what happens. It's all weather dependent. If the weather is rough, rainy, cold, we're not going to be able to do much painting outdoors, which is very annoying. But it's going to be a lot of fun. The ship will be extra alive. They get to live on the ship. Cook all their meals in the galley. We have a retired Navy cook. He also owned his own diner after the Navy, so he does all the cooking for everybody. Wonderful meals. Take showers. Only thing we can't do is laundry.
But you don't have a laundry machine off site.
No. If they really need it, they can go to laundromat, or sometimes they'll go to the homes of our volunteers and do laundry there.
John Epp, curator at the USS Slater in Albany, New York. Check out their website, ussslater.org, or search for the YouTube channel. Simply put USS Slater in the search bar and it should come right up. One thing I always like to say is obviously we can't do this without subscribers and viewers. But when you talk about logging on to a museum's YouTube channel, obviously you can watch their content, but if you like and subscribe, that is a huge help to them. So if you aren't able to donate, if you aren't able to support them, at least like and subscribe. It's one of the simplest yet most effective ways you can throw your support behind their efforts. John's just talking about having over 40 volunteers, and that's fantastic. But to even just follow their social media content when something like that happens, and the Slater's got a pretty robust social media platform when it comes to highlighting the work of their volunteers. So definitely check out their social media feeds. Their what is it, Facebook and Instagram?
So Facebook is our primary feed. Instagram, we post occasionally, but Facebook is a daily post every single day on Facebook.
Yeah. And so when they have these volunteer activities coming up, and you see what's going on at the Slater, definitely check out their content.
Something I should mention, I forgot. This morning, Drakitafel posted his.
Hey, what the hell's going on over there in Buffalo?
Sorry, it's a motorcycle. Sorry, I tried to get it muted. I didn't make it in time. My microphone's better.
All right, go ahead, John. What were we saying?
Drakitafel, prior to the HENSA conference, HENSA symposium last year at the Midway, stopped in Albany and spent the day on the ship and filmed a long form video. So he just posted it this morning. It's about an hour long. It is a wonderful video of the ship and her weaponry and yeah, he did a fabulous job. And there was one other thing, but I'm getting old and I forgot what I was going to say.
What are you, like 30?
Well,
worse, Shane. Worse. I'm 31.
If it occurs to you, you can
all
always
downhill from there. It's all downhill from there.
All right,
Greg, you can typically you go on Hensel's website, but Shane, I guess you could speak more to that. I remembered. You talked about donations.
Yeah.
A lot of people think these large museum ships, it costs a tremendous amount of money to just maintain them, let alone do extra things. So oftentimes people might think, donating $10 isn't going to do much. We're going to have, like I said, about 40 people on the ship for a week. Your $10 is going to buy a tin of coffee. And that actually goes a long way just to keep the morale up of folks. So whether it's donating to the Slater, to the Buffalo Naval Park, or other museum ships, even $10, you'll be surprised how far we can make that stretch. So always keep that in mind. We're planning on doing a little fundraiser on Facebook the next couple of days in case people want to donate to help us buy paint or whatnot for this work week.
That's a good point. That's a really good way to kind of break it down. You think, $5, $10, what's it really going to do? Well, a lot when it comes to keeping volunteers going, coffee, water. Yeah. I mean, the every little bit counts. So that's a good point.
Yeah. We provide the volunteers with, soft drinks. So, for free, but we got to buy those, and, $10 is going to buy a couple cases of water or a few dozen things of soda. So yeah.
I remember when I was on the Jeremiah O'Brien over in San Francisco visiting, they actually had a keg set up for their volunteers, and I gave them $20 for their keg fund.
Like an actual keg?
Oh yeah, beer. Yeah, I'm going, all right, sure.
Have you been to the Sackville?
What's that?
Have you been to the Sackville?
No.
They converted one of their boiler rooms to a pub.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, they did.
Really?
Yeah, it's really cool.
I think that's Hinz is going to be there sometime soon, I think.
Henson was there, I want to say around 2000, give or take.
Yeah, 25 years ago. That's good. It's time to go back, I guess, right?
Yeah, I'd love to go to see Sackville. I have not had a chance to see her yet, but she's, for those who aren't aware, Sackville is the last Flower class corvette. If you've watched the movie Greyhound, that's Dickie in the movie. That is played by the Sackville.
Got it.
Hey, little scrapper.
Shane, do you want to let Connor go next, and then you and I can talk about a little bit about the kid?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I'm just responding here to Greg.
Connor, you want to?
Yeah, I'll gear up here.
I've got your.
All right, everyone. Yep.
Go for
So
it.
yeah, just start on the person. So
No, you're
as part of my
you're in control of the pictures. I'll let you do that.
right, gotcha. Right. So everyone, first I just want to say, again, I'm Connor Kilgore. I'm with museumships.us, which is a website which attempts to chart all the museum ships around the world. So if you ever are interested in planning a trip, always feel free to check out our website at www.museumships.us. Of course, I lose the tag now when I'm looking for it because there we go. We also have the Facebook group, which is just Museum Ships on Facebook. So if you want to join our community there and see photos of museum ships from around the world, I would highly recommend it. We have about 130,000 people and growing pretty regularly. But unfortunately, we have to talk about a museum ship that will very soon no longer be with us. I'm giving you guys an update today, and that is the James Whalen. So if you are a regular on the show, you might have heard me talking about the ship in the past. The James Whalen is an old ice-breaking tug, and she was built in 1905 in Toronto. And she would be brought up to Thunder Bay, where I lived, and she would operate here in our harbor from 1905 until, hold on, I have my notes out here, till 1977. And she would be the primary icebreaker in this harbor. She would be breaking the ice every single season until 1959. So if you aren't aware, Lake Superior freezes over most years, and you need icebreaker at the beginning and end of the local shipping season. So for many years, this was our main icebreaker. She was named after a local entrepreneur, and she would operate mostly in our harbor area, and she'd also run up and down the Kaministiquia River, which is just to the south of town. This photo here is of her from 1913, and this is actually the oldest photograph of her I could find. And this would have been with her original owners, which were the Canadian Towing and Wrecking Company out of Port Arthur, Ontario. But she was docked on the south side of town. She would operate, like I mentioned, as an icebreaker, but she also do a lot of salvage work, a lot of moving of barges, and a lot of dredging. And here's another photo here of her on the Cam River. You'll see her right there. In the 1960s, 1962, she was rebuilt, and she would end up as a diesel-powered tug. She'd lose her original classic smokestack, and she would still operate in the harbor until 1977, when she would be renamed to the Dennis 5 and would end up operating out of Quebec as well as the Maritimes. Well, sometime in the late 1980s, she had an incident where apparently the engine fried, it died on them, and due to the age of the vessel, again, 1909, 1905 hull, it was decided that she would be retired. And she would sit in the St. Lawrence River for a number of years until 1992. Hold on, I'll find the photo. 1992.
I thought you forgot to switch it. I'm going, wait a second.
Oh, here we are.
Okay.
1992. In 1992, the city of Thunder Bay decided to bring the James Whalen home. I'll give you a better side view of her right here.
Look at the condition. Look at the condition of it.
Yep.
Wow.
So they brought her home. You can see that her superstructure, upper superstructure, had been replaced when she was converted to diesel. What they did was they contracted the Thunder Bay Tug Company to bring her there. They were going to Halifax to pick up a new tug for themselves, and they used the opportunity to stop in Quebec and pick up the James Whalen. Just as a side note, the tugboat that brought her home on the left, that is the Point Valor, and I've had the pleasure of going aboard her on a number of occasions. She's an icon in our harbor now, for the last 30 years. Now, she would go under a 6-year overhaul. She would be converted back to her 1905 appearance, and this is what she looked like then. These photos are from before she had her unfortunate fate. She'd be open at the Kaministiquia Heritage Park from 1998 until 2010 to 2012, depending on the source, until unfortunately she was closed. She had been operated by the city, and they decided to cease operations as a museum, and they left her as a stacked display, and where inevitably she got broken into and a bunch of other things unfortunately happened. She became a bit of an eyesore, but things started getting bad for the vessel, unfortunately, in 2021 when she sprung a leak from her stern, and you can actually see how she's slightly listing in these photos. And while they would install a pump, the pump was not functional in the winter of 2022. And ultimately what would happen is when the ice ended up going out into Lake Superior, went down the Cam River, they believe that a patch that was on her forward hull ended up being ripped off or damaged, and she sank from the bow, and she would end like this.
Oh.
So here she is. Here she is in April of 2022. And I took this, no, it was May of 2022. And I took this photo. And just a random fun fact, when I was taking this photo, an old gentleman approached me, and he turned out to be a veteran of the USS Honolulu from World War II. And he was living in Canada now. And he heard boat news, and he came over with his son to take a look at it. But unfortunately, this is where she would sit. She would sit like this until September of that year. And it was very hard to see. I had been involved with a operation that was trying to get the James Whalen moved over to the Transportation Museum of Thunder Bay, which has the Alexander Henry. But unfortunately, we were too late. And she sank. And ultimately, the city would hire Toronto shipyards to bring a barge up, Coastal Titan, and they would raise her in early September of that year. And then she would languish for the next 2 years as the city, as well as various organizations, attempted to decide her fate. She is actually, fun fact, she is sitting, I told this to Ken earlier, do you see those silos on the left side that say Patterson on them in this photo?
Yeah.
Those silos are in the exact same spot that she's in now. So you can see the difference 100 years take. But she sat there, and in September of last year, the city had proposed the idea of cutting the ship about 4 feet from her main deck and turning that into a stacked display somewhere along our waterfront, and then scrapping the lower section of the hull. But it seems that in the time since then, the city has opted to just scrap the ship entirely, and 24 hours ago. And she's looking a bit rough now. And so unfortunately, her fate has seemingly been decided for the time being. But I figured that as we are Museum Ship Mafia, and while we are focusing on authors this year, I did figure that I'd put this piece of Canadian museum ship news out there, that unfortunately we are losing a vessel which has been in and out of museum existence for the better part of 30 years now. And it's an unfortunate fate for the old girl, because I've seen her on and off most of my life. So it's very disappointing.
Connor, what was the city's justification for scrapping the Whalen?
Oh, so cost. That was the primary thing. The people that they were getting contracting numbers of $1 million or more to restore it, which was contested by other organizations in the city, believing that it could have been done for a lot cheaper. But I know ultimately in the end, cost was probably the biggest factor, and I do think there might have been some embarrassment as well, but I can't testify to that. But
okay, so let's
embarrassment. Embarrassment about what?
About the fact that she sank.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
Hmm.
Sorry, Shane.
No, that's
Yeah,
all
go
right.
ahead.
We know about that. So,
Yeah.
or I know about that. Why don't we put the Mafia in Museum Ship Mafia and go and take the stack?
Well,
Why don't we strong arm everybody and we just go on? We take that beautiful stack with that lovely color pattern,
Mhm.
yeah.
and we just stow it away for a while.
Mhm. Well, when I was involved back in September of last year, part of the reason why we proposed to save the upper superstructure was, well, more than just the superstructure, because originally the city, from what I gather, just wanted to save the wheelhouse and the stack. But as you saw from the photo I posted here, those aren't original. They're replicas.
Oh, so what's the point then?
Exactly. So that's why we wanted to save the entire superstructure. And I actually wrote a historical list to the
Connor,
city.
can
And
you go back to that 1913 picture?
Absolutely.
That was
It's right. Oh, no, wrong one.
number 7, I think.
Yeah, found it.
Yeah.
Oh, so they replaced the original and then
Yeah.
restored it back to
Yes.
reproduction.
Yes.
Okay.
It's like a new old stock, right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
it looks
new old
like
stock.
it did, but it's not the original.
Yeah. So it seems that nothing necessarily, although there will still be efforts to save parts of the vessel, but I'm not directly involved with that at the moment. But
Mhm.
I am still talking about it. Made CBC News yesterday when the decision was made. It was becoming quite a bit of a controversial topic.
Mm.
But yeah. I figured that our audience should know that unfortunately we are losing a vessel from the historic fleet probably this year. But I will update when updates become available.
All right, Connor with the and by the way, Connor not only is supporting us behind the scenes, managing comments, that type of thing. He's also one of the administrators of the Museum Ships Facebook group. So if you get the opportunity to check out, or if you're interested in museum ships, check out the Museum Ships Facebook group. It's very, very active, over 130,000 followers, I think. And you're going to see all kinds of photos like the ones that Connor just shared with us tonight. So if museum ships are your thing, check out that Facebook group.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to Shane Stevenson with the Buffalo Naval Park, who was just visiting, just visiting the USS Kidd in dry dock down in Louisiana. Not last week, but the week before. I was fortunate enough to go along with them.
I turned this picture into my LinkedIn profile picture, so people have to turn sideways if they want to see me. Yes, that was a. Go ahead. Are we gonna double team this here or what?
Oh no! I just have a bunch of pictures from the trip.
And so Ken and I went down to Baton Rouge or Homa via Baton Rouge to visit USS Kidd. Molly was on here earlier. Tim. There's Tim, Shane, Omar is the one holding the camera, and then you have Molly there. Ken must be taking the photo, I assume.
Yeah, I took that photo.
Yeah. Oh, there he is. Look at that beautiful measure, the camouflage measure. Oh, that's a nice photo. So I was on a fact-finding mission for the Sullivans, the Kidd and Sullivan's sister ships. So I did a lot of filming of the hull, the 3 types of work that they did, crop and renew, clad welding, and just plate replacement. And again, I did a video about the uniqueness trap and how we don't want to fall into the uniqueness trap. And the way to take away uncertainty is to visit other ships that have done this before and gather as much information. So I'm putting it all together. I'm giving a PowerPoint presentation to the whole staff next week with some of these film and videos. And we are going to learn from what they said and what they learned. Some areas that really need to be focused on, and we'll go from there. So,
it looked like looks like Molly just tuned in. Wait, I tuned in exactly.
So wait, what did she say? Video on all of it. Keep that up for a second.
Hold on a second.
Video on all this coming out on Kids Channel. Perfect. So
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So please check out the kid. And yes, they have in fact passed us in terms of subscribers. Molly, I'm still waiting. Please, I'm still waiting for my Get Well card. Right, you guys are going to put a Get Well card in the mail. And sorry, we've surpassed you, but you'll be okay. Please still send that on. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a great. I really enjoyed being there. It was a great trip.
Good. Yeah. What do you want to say and contribute?
It was. I mean, I don't know. This is my first time in a shipyard, really, and so it was. I mean, obviously, it's a thrill just to see the ship in dry dock, see the kid in dry dock. I'd never seen the kid before.
Mm-hmm.
But just see how everything was operating, how learning how they got it out of the water, everything like that. To, if you look on the right side of this picture, the rickety stairs you had to go up to get to the top of, get to deck level of the kid. Not thrilled with that.
You did not have an easy time doing that.
Oh no, I did not like that at all. But everyone else seemed fine with it. But yeah, it was great to meet Tim. It was great to meet, well, everybody really, Parks, Molly, you see Omar in the picture there. I had never met Tim or Parks in person before, so it was great to meet them. We had not only a great visit at the ship, but then we also did Molly set up a live episode at Parks's place. His, what's it called? Club 661.
Yeah, he has a bar named Club 661. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was great. Tim also set up for us a visit to the former site of the air dock that was there in Homa, which housed K-class blimps. The place was just absolutely huge. On the right-hand side, you see Molly, as they're filming me, standing. These are just foundation brackets for the overall thing. I mean, the place was just massive. So that was set up by Tim as well. It was just a great trip all the way around. So
can you go back to Parks's the Club 661?
Yeah, hold on a second.
Yeah, I'd like to point out.
Go ahead.
So you see all the ships above us there?
Yeah.
Those are wrecked vessels that Parks has visited at the bottom of the ocean or wherever their wreck lies.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes. So remember I pointed out and I said, I saw the numbers real quick. Of course, it's USS Johnston 557. But, from a distance, it looked like 537, which is the Sullivan's number. So I said, oh, my gosh, you have a picture of the Sullivans. He's like, oh, no. That's the Johnston, which he does love that Fletcher. And the story that it tells. And then he quickly does an arm motion to all six. And he says, these are the ones I visited. I visited all of their wreck sites of all of these ships. So that's what that represents.
Okay.
And the Titanic is the second from left.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then the Johnston's
the third from the left. Yeah.
Yeah. And the others I can't remember offhand. But for those of you, that looks like
Sammy
another
B.
Fletcher. Oh, the Sammy B probably. Oh, that's the fifth
Piper
one.
on the end.
I can't.
Cruiser?
I wish I could zoom in.
Yeah, I don't think it might be a luxury liner. Like if
it's a liner of some sort. It's not Titanic though. It's a liner of some sort.
Yeah, so it's we have probably the whole I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to get too.
Oh, wait, Molly's on. Molly knows. She'll tell us.
Does she? Will she know?
Well,
so I think it goes. I don't know. It looks like a submarine. Then it's the Titanic. Then it's the Johnston. Then it might be. Has he visited the Hole? Has that been located?
No, the Hole hasn't been located.
Okay,
no.
Then it's the Sammy B.
Yeah.
And then another like a passenger liner or something. So anyway, great trip had by all.
Definitely.
That's the whole point. And some of you have said this in the chat, right? Like it's, hey, come on up and meet these people, right? And that's what this is all about, building a relationship with people from across a distance. And it's well worth it. You exchange ideas. It's like we're a maritime empire. We go somewhere else, we learn, we exchange ideas, we come back, blah, 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 right? So it's really great stuff.
Yeah, definitely well worth the trip.
Hey,
And
Ken.
yeah.
Did you ever think, what now, 2-3 years ago, you emailing Shane would result in you visiting a Fletcher class destroyer in dry dock?
Well, first of all, I have to correct you and say Shane contacted me.
Oh,
Yeah. So if it wasn't, I always like to give Shane credit, because if it wasn't for him sending me a note, basically all he was doing was asking me, it's like, hey, do you mind if we post a couple of links on your YouTube channel? My channel wasn't very big at all. It was, I don't think I even had 1,000 subscribers, but Shane had just started the Buffalo Naval Parks YouTube channel, and he actually reached out to me. And if it wasn't for Shane doing that, it was then that I had a viewer ask about what her great uncle actually might have experienced on the USS Johnston right before it went down. And that is why I reached out to Shane. So if it wasn't for Shane taking that step first, I never would have known who he was. And then I never would have had the idea of contacting him. So Shane gets all the credit for that. But to answer your question,
collaboration.
Yeah, collaboration.
4 or 5 years ago, collaboration.
If you would have said, hey, you're gonna get involved in this world, meet people like you, Shane, Connor, get to talk to people like Park Stevenson, Victor Vescovo, Richie Kohler. Heck, we had David Winkler on tonight. I mean, you think about all the people that we've talked to and that we will continue to talk to. That's the long answer. The short answer is no.
That's as short as you can get. One MC, is that good, John? One MC?
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah. When I started all this, no. The answer is no. When I've been able to meet you people, talk to these people, cross paths with, heck, David Lockman, who wrote the book about the U505. Finding. I mean, the people that we've talked to, never in a million years would it have occurred to me that, wait, what was that you just held up there? The
P.T. Duderman.
Yeah, P.T. Duderman. One of my favorite authors. Yeah, Trial by Fire, and he's written a whole bunch of other books as well. And then you throw this into the mix. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can bring this up. Where was that picture? Oh, well, here I can just do this one. Number 12. Then you throw in getting to visit places like this on the picture on the right hand side. Where this huge air dock, used to sit. Well, that was all made possible by Tim. So you see these little brackets on either side. That's these huge concrete structures. And, to be able to visit someplace like this, that's off limits to just,
Yeah, you become quite an airship fanatic, right? Ever since you started all this?
Well, I'm originally from kind of close to the Akron area, which is where a lot of the dirigibles were built. The huge Akron air dock is still there. And so I've always when you live in that area, you're used to the Goodyear blimp flying overhead all the time. So it's no big deal. But, so I always kind of had that fascination. But to be able to, do crazy things, never in a million years did I think I'd be able to do that. So.
And that's the SSUS, right?
No, it is not. Let's see. So let's go back to this picture.
I'm just going to tell you quickly, Ken, you joked about it, but there were 2 people who did attempt to post that video thinking it was serious on museum ships.
So that's what he wanted.
The whole point I was trying to make, and if you're watching on History X tonight, you'll see a donation link to the USS Kidd. The whole point I was trying to make was, all right, everyone's upset about the SS United States being prepared as an artificial reef. We should have saved it. We can raise money. We can save it now. It's not too late. You missed your opportunity. It's too late. What's not too late is to donate to operations like the USS Slater, the Buffalo Naval Park, the USS Kidd, which is currently in dry dock. There are so many other opportunities to support museum ships. Yeah, the SS United States, too late.
Yeah.
And if you were aware of it and you didn't donate, then shame on you.
Yeah.
Okay, but you have the opportunity
and-
to redeem yourself by supporting these other operations and making sure that they last for generations to come, so that other people can enjoy them. So that was really my whole point on kind of creating that video, is to try and generate some guilt, you know, and make people realize. And like I said, if you're watching on History X, you'll see a donation link for the USS Kidd Veterans Museum.
Nice.
Yeah.
Click
So
on
now-
it. Hit $5.
Talking about collaboration,
Yeah.
I was going to swing back to what we're doing over here with 1MC. Is we are doing a collaboration for the 200th anniversary of the Erie Canal. So the western terminus is Buffalo, the eastern terminus is Albany. They both have museum ships in both cities. So we are doing a commemorative joint ticket where you can get entrance to both the Slater Memorial and the Buffalo Naval Park, and you get a commemorative challenge coin as well. So that will be coming out in this summertime, probably Memorial Day through Labor Day, I think is we're working with Shanna very closely at Slater, and then a few of us at the Naval Park. And we're going to offer a joint ticket in honor of the Erie Canal 200th anniversary.
Got it. Very cool.
Fantastic.
Connor, did you put up Molly's comment?
Which one?
The one that she just posted?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so Molly figured out what the
submarine was.
Yeah, the one in the upper left there.
So the one in the upper left was the Japanese midget sub that made its way into Pearl Harbor? Or no, that was probably the one that was found off the shore that the University of Hawaii found, that was probably shot by the
Ward
out on the Ward.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went.
Again.
Yeah, we went to see the Ward's gun. Remember that, Ken?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish
that was a collaboration that you guys did.
100%. Yeah. So thanks for Molly for solving that little mystery for us. Let's see. I guess that's about it tonight. Yeah, we had a
great.
longer episode, but I wanted to pull this up and say thanks again to David Winkler for joining us this evening. Shoot, sorry. Where's the notes that I had for David? Oh, I apologize. Where is it?
Can I just add one more thing to your comment?
Yeah, go ahead, because I lost David's. Shoot, go ahead, Connor. Sorry,
so everyone, of course, please support the Slater, the Kidd, the Buffalo Naval Park. But I also, and again, just to shell again, if you want to see a museum, like if there's a museum ship you're interested in, or a type of museum ship, feel free to check out our website at museumships.us. We have 500 plus vessels at this point listed, and for the majority of them, we do have their up-to-date social medias and websites listed. So if you're interested in any type of vessel, a freighter, a submarine, a battleship, a passenger liner, there's a few of those, take a look, find their information. We'll have it listed on our website if available, and support your local museums and support museum ships across the world and across the United States, because they're all needing it.
Well said. Yeah, the fact that you've got 500 there,
I think
there's really no excuse for anyone not to be able to support one of them.
They are supporting us. They are watching this. They're still logged on, which is great. Thank you. We're going over 2 hours now, which is pretty rare, but so thank you. Of course, thank you for all of your support.
And before we say goodbye, I wanted to definitely say thanks again for David. I found his page up here. So David Winkler, author of America's First Aircraft Carrier, the USS Langley, and the Dawn of U.S. Naval Aviation. The link to this book should be appearing in the video description below. You can also check out the U.S. Naval Institute's website and find his work there as well. So thanks to David for being so generous with his time. And tune in the second Wednesday of next month, where we'll have another author that is going to be brought on from the U.S. Naval Institute Press. So keep that in mind. Second Wednesday of each month. we'll have a new author on. Anything else you guys want to add?
No, sir.
Nope.
All right. Well, then my name is Ken Stano with the YouTube channel History X. Just want to say thanks for joining us tonight, and for Shane from the Buffalo Naval Park, John from the USS Slater, and Connor from the Museum Ships Facebook group. Thanks for joining us, and everyone have a good evening.
You have a great night, everyone.
See you, 1MC.